Just wanted to do a short-ish webinar about solving business challenges and taking opportunities with web or mobile apps. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I just want to give away some knowledge and information, pitfalls, what to expect, but also how to identify really in business where apps, software, bespoke software, tech can help you out. So very quickly, I'm Sam Furr, co-founder, CEO of Tappable. Started this business in 2012, and my role really is a product guy. So I'm not a hands-on designer or developer, but I understand users, I understand usability, but I understand business as well and processes. So I've been lead analyst on a number of projects in life sciences, manufacturing, live entertainment experiences, gaming, and all sorts. I've also sat on the board of multiple startups. And why is that relevant? Because that startup ethos of never enough time, never enough money, but also need to move really, really fast, iterate, kill it quick, all that sort of stuff. We bring into the corporate world and the way that we work with businesses as well. And Tappable is a software agency, bespoke software agency, if you have to put a label on it. But we are heavily involved in the strategic part, the analysis. We do a lot of consultancy, but also we design, develop, test, launch, maintain projects and software projects beyond just building the thing. So end-to-end agency. So hopefully I am able to speak on these topics with some type of experience behind me. So the agenda, just a very quick overview of terminology and what apps can do. It's not always the obvious stuff. Is an app right for your business, and also how to spot where new tech could play its part in growth, scaling, cost saving, that sort of stuff. How to get started, the thin slice approach, as I like to call it, which is a methodology to start small, why some things fail, and some examples along the way. So I'll kick off with the terminology. So just very quickly, mobile apps, we know what they are. They are iOS and Android in the main applications that sit on somebody's mobile phone. There's also web apps, and you'll hear me say these terms throughout this webinar. So there's web apps and websites, web apps, sort of the same thing, but a web app, web application is generally you access it like a website, you go to a URL, but then you log in and do things. So Facebook, Zero, these things are web apps, but you access them through a browser just like you do any other website. So when I say apps, I mean mobile and web apps. But there's also others. There's off the shelf. So off the shelf software, that's when you pay a license or buy a seat to a particular product and you get access to their web app, mobile app, whatever that thing is. Bespoke software is a bit of a overarching label to just build something different that isn't off the shelf. It sort of covers all the rest. And then there's middleware, which is it's a piece of software that doesn't have a front end, where you can't access or look at that piece of software, look what's happening on it, but it's connecting two systems together in the cloud or otherwise. That connection didn't exist before, so you can't access it to look at what it's doing, but it's there and it's performing a function. And technology is the overarching term for all of it. So building new tech, it could mean any of this stuff, bringing tech into business, any of this stuff. So start with a story of how an application helped a particular client of ours. So company A, they deliver 200 or even more than that lorries of products a day. And these are not small Amazon parcels. They are big deliveries of concrete, manufacturing equipment, that sort of stuff. When those lorries are delivered, there's a proof of delivery. So a piece of paper that is signed by the foreman or somebody at the site who says, yes, this thing's delivered. Now, this particular client sends invoices out along with the proof of delivery. That's how they say, we're invoicing you this thing because it's been delivered. So you can imagine a piece of paper that sits in a lorry driver's cab. Some of these are contractors. They're not all fully staffed drivers. It's up to 4 weeks before those pieces of paper make it to head office, and then another week or two for someone to process and raise that invoice. So we're looking at a 6-week process from delivery to invoice, 6 weeks. And then, of course, payment terms beyond that. So we were asked to have a look at how can we streamline this and make this a bit more efficient. Well, It's actually quite simple and maybe obvious actually. We ask the driver when they deliver something to just take a photo of that piece of paper. Notice not replace that piece of paper, get someone to sign something digitally, a whole new process, whole new training of 4, 5, 600 staff. Just, oh, when you deliver that bit of paper, here's an app, download it, PIN number, log in, take a photo of that bit of paper when it's signed. That's it. So we didn't touch that original process at all. So what the app did, there was a QR code on that piece of paper, on that proof of delivery. The driver takes a photo, it goes off to the cloud. The cloud then can read that QR code and it knows what job that's related to, files it into their internal system, and immediately either connected to their accounting software and raises an invoice, or alert somebody to say proof of delivery, EPOD, EPOD. EPOD is available, this invoice can be raised. And that cut their invoicing cycle from 6 weeks to same day in some cases. So one example of how a mobile application, which isn't this customer facing big thing that needs lots and lots of users, really simple, really changed how this business operated. And this was the app in reality. It's a little old, and we would design things a bit better now, but you can see, you log in, you take a photo, you hit submit, that's it. A great first example of how apps can help that particular business. So what can apps do in general then? Well, I've tried to put it into 6 boxes and I'll be light on them because I can do a webinar on each. But of course, operational efficiency, connecting internal systems that I've briefly mentioned, cutting invoice cycles, collecting and centralizing data you may not already have, and ultimately removing paper, potentially removing people, removing time from people to make things a lot easier in businesses. Then there's IoT apps, so Internet of Things. These are connected devices, some even down to sort of Bluetooth, all the way up to Wi-Fi remote or data connected devices that need some type of interface remotely to control it, operate it, check it, get alerts from it, to have advantage over competitors. So you can, of course, build apps to connect with things that already exist. Data, of course, if you've got people using a product or people doing something on a digital system, instantly you can track everything from an interaction perspective. You can get new data about your machinery out there. You can get new data about health and safety reporting. Oh, these particular sites have more health and safety reports instantly where that data is needed. Product launches, if you're launching a product, as I mentioned, IoT controllers to control that new product, but also companion apps, digital twins. If you're giving your customers a new catalog and you still send those things out in the post or ask them to collect them at a trade show, then give them a digital version of that as well. Far more accessible, far easier to distribute. Communications, big. I think this is quite an important area to look at in businesses for where apps can help, because I'm honestly a believer, bold statement alert, that communication can solve, or better communication, enhanced communication can solve lots of business problems before they need to follow specific escalation paths. That's getting people the information they need to do jobs. It's also getting information back up the chain where it needs to be to stop frustrations lower down. So apps can really help enhance that communication with staff, customers, board members, investors, whatever it may be. But ultimately, what do we want apps to do when we bring them into business? We want them to make more money or save money. And whether that is asking people to buy things, whether it is removing people or taking time away from people to focus on their jobs, all of it should be attributed somewhere back to we can make more money and save more money. And if we're making people happier in their jobs because their life is a bit easier, they might work a bit better and work a bit smarter. Again, can be attributed somewhere to money. So that's a brief overview of what apps can do. But do you really need one? Well, outside of the obvious, and the obvious means, we're launching a product and it has to have a controller via a mobile application. Of course, then that's easy. But or we sell products and we want to give an app so people don't need to use the website all the time. Fine. But if you look inside your business and you can see that there's admin staff, multiple admin staff performing data entry, repetitive manual tasks, these things can be solved with middleware, bespoke technology, potentially off the shelf? Do you hear common complaints and frustrations from people in the team saying that, just don't like this part of the job? There might be something you can do with tech to help that out. Are things taking long? Do we get frustrated of how long things take? Still use lots of paper? These are all places to look to start to consider whether an application or a bit of tech might be able to help you out. But also sometimes competitors are doing things and you need to catch up or stay ahead with people who are already innovating. If you're market leading, you may want to bring out continuous new innovations, in which case, of course, technology should be near or top of that list. And of course, it can increase the value of the business. If you own technology, which you should, if it's not off the shelf, it's yours, you own it, then there's inherent value in that. So if you're building the business up for funding, if you're looking for exit, you're trying to hit certain targets, then inherently you can add IP to the business. So one very quick, I know it's lots of words in this box, but I'll go very quick example of a not necessarily obvious way that we helped another business. Same business as the example before. So when you're firing bricks in a kiln, if the temperature's not right, there's too much moisture, there's a chemical in there, it wasn't cleaned properly, all these attributes determine what color and other stuff those bricks come out as. So if you're trying to make bricks in a certain range and you get one of those variables incorrect, you have a slightly off color, slightly more brittle, slightly different type of brick that can't be sold as part of that range. So if there's 40 factories doing this, then all of a sudden they have these limited editions that they are taking up stock, taking up space that they can't sell. So they'll ring in their local salespeople. Hey, I've got some of these, got some of that. Can you help? So of course, a mobile application here with a web application really solved this issue. So the factory managers now take a photo of those bricks of that product. They upload it via a really simple form to a platform. And then the salespeople out on the road have access to this exclusive limited edition range catalog that they can sell. And it really made just that whole process quicker, and it saves lots of money, saves lots of time, but also make money because they can get these products sold quicker because the information communication is spread far quicker. And again, this is what that product looked like. Very simple. There's a web app to control it. It hooked into existing systems and salespeople type, yes, want to place this order. But it took quite a clunky process and just made it into a really smart, simple, uniformed bit of technology. So if we've thought, actually, there may be somewhere in this business somewhere in my business that technology may be able to help. How do you actually start? And I'm gonna dance around these subjects quite lightly because they're very complicated in their own right. But I really look at it as a 5 stage approach. So first is the identification. There is a problem here. There is that slow method of data moving up the chain, whatever the issue is, or the opportunity. It's not always problems. So we've identified there's an opportunity that tech may be able to help. So then you need to analyze it. So in our world, tech world, it's called business analysis. So this is really getting into the detail of what this thing could be. And it's a complex process of understanding your existing processes, because one of the key components that I will talk about in a little while is why things fail. One of the key components is the cultural pillar of digital transformation. I'm not particularly keen on that term, but the cultural pillar. So what does that mean? That's the people that have to use this thing. We are asking people who've been doing a job maybe for 10 years or longer or not as long to change the way they do their job. So some of these things are muscle memory. Some of these things are just baked into that's how this company does that particular thing. So you've got to make sure that the behavioral shift of giving people new tech, and there's, people who I don't like tech, I don't really use apps, absolutely fine. We've got to cater for those people. So the analysis is where this stuff is really explored, and we then validate on the next step, but we explore it in what's your existing process, what's the ideal process, as is process to be process. And then how close can we get those? Or is there a period of overlap where the existing process still operates, but this new way of working sort of dips into it along the way to start to streamline it? So the analysis is really important to understand all of that, but also scope out the product, scope out the features, scope out a potential roadmap of what can be delivered, but also we jump to pictures really quickly. Big documents, tech specs, Google spreadsheets, whatever, they're hard for somebody to read and understand, certainly who aren't in the world doing what um, business analysts do and technology companies do. So we jump to pictures really, really quickly, and I'll show you an example in a minute. And these are just rapidly, sometimes hand sketched. That's what a screen might look like. So this analysis phase, all phases are as important as the other, but I say this one is probably one piece slightly higher, because it's this is the bit that determines whether people will use the tech or not. So once you've done the analysis and you've analyzed, then you map out and build a prototype. Now, prototypes and proof of concepts, MVPs, they're all these labels which are fairly diluted now, but a real prototype isn't actually any software. It is a series of screens of user journeys stitched together using some web tool like Figma, Canva, there's lots of them, that give you a clickable prototype that you can sit in front of people that have come on the analysis journey with you and say, you remember we talked about that, and the people that we identified had the problem or saw the opportunity. We go back to them and say, look, here's some screens, click this, click this. Does that solve the thing that you were telling me about when you told me about it? Do we think this is going to create an opportunity for us? And here's the impact it's going to have on people. So doing that prototype, it was Google, I'm sure it was Google who validated with data that 5 people, the science is 5 people you need to show those prototypes to, and the first 5 show you 80% of your problems with it. So it's not a big, massive stakeholder review and focus groups here and all this sort of stuff. You can just take it to 5 people and say, what do you think about this? And 80% of those problems they will tell you. So that stage 3, as I've just said, is stage 2, is the most important of all of them. And then once we validate it and you iterate, you go back to the analysis and you tweak and change and come back with new prototype. Then it's about feature prioritization, project integration plans, the human element. Right, we're going to bring this system into your business in the next 3 or 6 months. We're going to have this new way of working. What does that mean? Who does it impact? And how can we make it as simple as possible? And where's the ambassadors internally that we can bring on board to help us roll this new product out and integration into the business? So there's a lot of planning required there. And then finally, you get to build the thing. And that is a whole area I'm going to deliberately avoid today. I'm happy to talk about those specifics later on. But once you've done all that stuff, then the building bit, I say it, I don't say it lightly, is almost the easy bit, because for you, the priority is making sure we're building the right thing and it's going to be used. Now we understand what that is. Somebody can build that thing to this specification. And here's an example, a little very quick example of that analysis phase in practice, working for a client that we did some analysis for. So the brief was actually quite simple. It was take us from this to this. So actual picture of their office, lots of paper, very busy, lots of things happening. And they had this vision of, we want this really streamlined approach to everything. Cool. We can start to unpick that. So this analysis phase looks like this. There's lots of, as you can see, screenshots on the bottom. It is process flows, it's potential user journeys, it is mapping out people's jobs, essentially. This is what everybody does. This is where the data and the customer, the client, the patient information flows through. These are the decisions that are made, and who and when and how makes those decisions. And that's an actual picture of our wall in our office where we were getting into real detail about how we can turn that business digital. So it really starts at this analysis. And the result of that is we start to just don't like to use this word much either, hack some screens together. So low quality visual representations of all of this stuff, visual representations of all of this stuff in screen format, because that's what people in the business can point at, touch, feel, and agree or disagree to. That's the thing that could really help us out. So we've got to map these things out. And then hopefully some of my designers haven't joined. We color them in, make them look pretty. And then this is the thing. We can then go back to the customers, staff, patients, team, stakeholders and say, look, this is the thing we want to build. And these can become the clickable prototypes I mentioned. So once you've done all of that, you still haven't actually built anything yet. So if you get all of that right, then you should start to avoid, hopefully, some of the common pitfalls. And of course, then it leads to a roadmap. So this is what our representation of features and product launches and dropping and where and how it's going to impact your business and help. So that's the really important stuff. Didn't have a designer available to do this screen, so did it myself. It's going to talk about starting small. So I think it's really important. I call it the thin slice approach, but it's really important to do this, because if you put your vision in a box, like this black box, and inside this vision, there is reporting and there's functionality and there's web services, portals, there's features, there's people, there's customers, there is mobile apps, there's desktop apps, there's web apps. This great big vision that we've got. And on one side of it, there's users, actions, and inputs go into the machine, and out the other side come outcomes, right? But that thing's massive. Remember the cultural stuff I talked about? Getting a business to completely transform is impossible on day one. So it's about taking this thin slice approach. So build that bit, build one layer across the middle, and I say find the highest value outcomes from the lowest effort actions and inputs. And the lowest effort is twofold. It's lowest effort for the users and the people doing it, but it's also lowest effort to build it as well, because you don't want to spend, or you want to spend as little as possible, because you don't know anybody's going to use this thing anyway yet, whatever it may be, customer facing, staff facing, whatever. So find that little slice. There's a little science in it, but there's often, low hanging fruit, whatever the term is. There's always these little thin slices that don't shift user behavior too much, that add a bucket load of value to the business, and it's not huge effort to get there. So that's the science, trying to find that, to then build the roadmap. We do that bit first, then we build on, and over time you have your vision, but it shouldn't all come at once. And starting small de-risks the investment. So we focus on our core users first, like the key people, who's going to use this. And we solve the biggest problems balanced with the lowest effort. You can't or don't create the solution assuming everybody wants it, because we don't know. There's a lot of opinions go into shaping a product. So you want to come away from opinions, or go group opinions as much as possible. And the can it just syndrome creeps in everywhere. So we've seen it 100 times through the scoping, the analysis phase, that when you show somebody something, they will always say, oh, that's awesome, love that. Can it just do this as well? Because their interest is in that one tiny thing. And then what you end up with is a massive list of can I justs, or can it justs. And yes, but now you've doubled the size of the project. It's going to take twice as long and shift too many behaviors. But also that opinion might be different to somebody else doing that same role. So just be really aware of the, oh, can it just do this syndrome? Focus on your core users, build your big problems, lowest effort. And starting small also gets things in the hands of people, users, whoever they are, much faster. So you get data and feedback. Nothing beats that. The quicker you can get to getting data and feedback, the absolute, that's the gold. That's the gold nugget. Get something in the hands quicker by doing some of the things that I'm just describing. And then iterate and evolve. And you've got a smaller thing to iterate and evolve and expand on over time. And just a quick example, actually, of a project where this stuff is coming into reality. So, Voice Care, fantastic startup. They have a grand vision to honestly change healthcare from the inside, patient care from the inside. And it's a very, very big project of lots and lots of different things going to happen in lots of environments. So, the thin slice approach. Let's start with one particular area of a hospital or a care institute. Let's start with one particular thing in that area, and let's only give it to one NHS trust to test that thing. Because now we're getting feedback, and feedback has been valuable on this, but also you get the endorsement of those customers. So sometimes you can pick a customer and say, we're going to build this thing, vision. Do you want to come in, be involved in this thin slice? We can build something very specifically for you, see if it works, see if it doesn't. And if it does work, you can give us an endorsement. Another one, Envimo. So this business, um, they monitor air quality around construction sites in urban areas. So, you can imagine Mrs. Smith wakes up one morning and her car's covered in dust because she's next to a construction site in the middle of London. She'll ring up the local council. What's happened? This isn't right. My washing's ruined. There's dust everywhere. So all those sites have air quality monitors around them, IoT connected to the internet. We built or there's this vision, even legislative vision later to have this thing as a must have. But we build a thin slice. Let's build it for one manufacturer of uh, sensors. Let's build it for one construction site in London, and let's allow one local authority to get access to this. So when a trigger goes off, when something happens, local authorities are alerted, site managers were alerted. Big product, nice little thin vision of something to test the water and see whether it works or not. Common reasons it fails, and I'm nearly done talking, I promise. Um, this list could be really big, but I've just picked some of the things that I think I hear or have heard a lot um, with stuff we built and others. So the product won't scale. That's an architectural thing. It's important, again, during the analysis. How many people could use this best case, worst case? What's the absolute maximum? If it's for your business and you've got 300 staff versus this is a consumer game and it might have 50,000 people, they should be built very, very differently. So you've got to make sure you're building it on the right architecture, infrastructure, the right foundations to make sure that you don't have some of those problems. Product updates are too slow. Like we can't get products out quick enough. Well, make sure the feedback cycle is right. Make sure in the analysis we're attacking the big things first, and planning for we're going to bring these updates. Um, Foresight is better than hindsight of things like that. It's too many bugs. It's taking forever to release. Um, Software development lifecycle should make that process not be too painful. Staff and customers don't want to use it. Don't want to, don't need to, two different things. But I identify why. And if your analysis is correct, then they shouldn't not want to. User acquisition is slow, can't add new free features because of the frameworks that are used. That's quite common in off the shelf. When you take an off the shelf product, it might look like it does 90% of what you want, but if that 10% is really important, it might not be the right product for you. Internal disagreement on features, what ifs, can it just? We don't know how to monetize. The user experience is complicated. All of these things are why some of these things are why apps can fail into when you're bringing them into business. So as much validation, early analysis, fast iteration, thin slice. So if you get some of these things wrong, you can change them quickly. That's why that stuff's really important to consider. Um, yeah, absolutely. Should be addressed before you start building. So that is my 30 minutes of talking. I, of course, am around sam@tappable.co.uk. Please drop me an email. I'm happy to have any workshops, not just quick 30-minute calls. I can bring some team in and we can have a more detailed conversation about some challenges, get into some of the specifics of what we've talked about. If you do have questions, please put them into the questions box. I can see I have one here from Steve. How can businesses choose between developing a web app or a mobile app or both? Yeah, super tough question that. And I think I immediately jumped to look at the users. So web app or a mobile app. Jump to the users. Who are they? Think about their accessibility. Where are they where will they be when they're using this product? What environment will they be in? Who are they? How many of them are there? What native features are needed on the device? So, we have things like camera and location. Yes, can be accessible via web as well, slightly more tricky and prone to issues in some cases. Um, accelerometer, if you need that, that's of course built into the device. So apps have a better way of building into those lower level things that phones can do, mobile apps, I mean. Um, and it's really an accessibility thing. I think it's slightly cheaper. Don't like the word cheap, but it's slightly more cost effective to build web than it is mobile. Um, Also from the maintenance, because if you've got iOS and Android and maybe a web version, you've got, two and a half or three places you need to go and check for things, wider device support. Whereas if you give everybody a browser experience, anybody can access it. And if you need to fix something, you fix it once and it's everywhere immediately. So yeah, I would go to look at the users, and it's an accessibility thing really. What's most relevant for the people accessing it? I've got another question from Louise. Do you have examples of apps you have developed for membership associations where the objective is member engagement and support? Um, Louise, I'll definitely talk to you separately about this because I think we can get into some more detail. Examples of apps we've built, off the top of my head, I can't I can't think of any. But generally, whatever you wrap your specific need in, it's not that much different whether it's a membership or it's a consumer app or it's a business focused thing. If the objective is member engagement and support, then really we should dig into uh, the value proposition. So when I say value, what value will you get as a business for having them engage and take part in whatever you want them to do, but also what's in it for them, right? We are a very fickle race. We have very short attention spans. So it's about what value, extra value, can we give those people who are members of your associations? And there's always little tricks of the trade. There's always things that we can do to re-engage. It's retention modeling. It's gamification. I don't like the word too much because it's a bit diluted, but the essence of gamification is still super valid and isn't going anywhere. So I would definitely, I'll drop you an email if that's okay, Louise, and we can have a separate conversation about what you're trying to achieve and maybe why it's not being achieved now. And then, yeah, see where that goes. More than happy to do that. Uh, I've got one more here. Um, Thank you, Louise. I've got one more here. How often do apps need updating and how much maintenance do they require? I think a generic answer is really difficult for this because it is really bespoke depending on what the solution is, and there's 100 facets to each solution. I think if we're going on the maintenance point first, if it's built right, it shouldn't need lots and lots and lots of maintenance. Like it shouldn't keep breaking, falling over if it's gone through a correct process of development. But that said, servers update, libraries need updating within projects, new devices come out, new browsers support new things or stop supporting old things. So there is this infrequent need for some very light touch maintenance. If the plan isn't to build lots of product updates, then maintenance should be really minimal. There's of course a cost where your project, if it's a cloud-based or server-based solution, somewhere in it probably is, then relatively low on the maintenance, just a quick health check, or better still, set alerts so we know when things are going to start breaking or going wrong and get ahead of the game to update things. So maintenance shouldn't be too heavy, but I caveat that with depending what the product is. And then updates, again, crappy of me to say, but there's no generic answer really. It's very specific to the product. So if you've done the analysis correctly and there is this big vision and this, then there should be a map quite early on of when all these features are coming. But as soon as you've got user data, as I said, get things in the hands of users. As soon as you've got user data, then those decisions become made for you. Data's making those decisions. So how often do they need updating? User and feature and business objective dependent. Maintenance should be relatively low touch. Um, just had yeah, good point, JK. Yes, depends. Sorry, on the maintenance depends the rate of operating system and tech stack updates. Generally, 4 per year. That sounds logical. Absolutely, 4 per year. And also, if you leave it longer, then sometimes it's harder as well. So it's actually more frequent but smaller is often the answer. Thank you. Can apps talk to and be integrated with existing business systems? General rule of thumb, yes. There's either those systems most of the time have an API, they have a way to connect with them and talk to them. So that's absolutely fine. If it exists, then it's generally very easy. So yes, most of the time. But if it's not, if they don't give developers a way to directly interface, then that doesn't mean that you can't. You can still integrate with them. It's extremely rare, certainly now, that there's a system that you just can't talk to or integrate with at all. Extremely rare. So I would go as far as to say, 95% can be integrated. And if that 5% can't, there's still stuff you can do, clever stuff you can do. Build a little bot that connects to it and it thinks it's you logging in as a user, but you're just programming it to do some stuff. So yes, apps can talk to existing business systems, pretty much all of them. Well, I think that is the end of the question, so I shall wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate your time. I didn't take the full hour, so I've given you 20 minutes back. Any questions, please reach out to me, sam@tappable.co.uk. We'll also drop you an email to see if anybody wants a workshop with myself, a couple of analysts or something to dig into any details. Have a wonderful day and hope to speak to you all soon. Thanks.